Hi everyone, it's Jen, and today I have a very intriguing, I'm gonna use the word intriguing guest. And I call her the lady of the hedgehog. Hello, Dorota Godby. So happy. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Well, I guess I should say hello from me and the hedgehogs, and hello to human hedgehogs because
Yes, this is what we're
because
gonna talk about, the human hedgehogs today. Yes. Yes, so Dorota, my heart is asking me to invite you to speak about your own personal journey. Doesn't matter how much of healing you have done, but then we all have our special, let's call it heroine's journey, where we have to conquer our fears, going to those places, dark places, and find the strength, and then come back to what truly costs to us, which is authenticity. That's why we're doing this authenticity project today, right? And so would love for you to share your personal journey with us about, yeah, what have you actually conquered? I'm going to use the word conquer um, along the way while finding yourself as this decluttering doula, and also your specialty and your expertise in helping the solopreneurs to find their strength, to find their natural alignment or effectiveness, you said, right?
sensitive effectiveness. Yes, that's what
Sensitive
I
effectiveness.
decided to call it because it's slightly different than the worthy shoots in the world.
Mm, yes, yes. So you can start talking about because I know you weren't born in the UK. You were from Poland at first.
I was born in Poland on the
Yes.
Russian side of the Cold War,
Yeah.
of the Berlin Wall, if you wish,
Mm-hmm.
and so my childhood was in communism, as in the communist system, and Um, it's interesting. I teared up when you mentioned the overcoming um, because everyone has got difficulties and
Mm.
every system has got difficulties. They just vary in what flavor they are, I guess. But I um, remember as a teenager in my relatively early teens, I had such crisis about life and especially about fears that love is not real or doesn't exist. And it
Mm.
hit me so hard, that conclusion, but this was conclusion in response to what I was seeing around me. That even in my family, there was a lot of emotional chaos and sort of conflict. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I could see the difference between what the words of love and the actions that were the opposite, and therefore that was one of the reasons why I was thinking, no, it's not real, because you cannot do this and say that's in the name of love, that kind of thing. So that
Yeah.
it was tough, and I guess today, now I know that a lot of that was not just the circumstances, but also my sensitive constitution, and that's
Mm.
why I ended up these days serving people who have naturally more sensitive constitution, because they say that when we work we serve the younger versions of ourselves. And when I came to soul search about who to serve in the world, once I found some exciting things to serve with, it dawned on me that it has to be sensitive people.
Mm.
And so because the understanding of how to support sensitive organism to thrive and how they need to function, it's still so new in the world that, of course, in my childhood and formative years was not there. Anyone
Yeah.
who is an adult today, um, other than the late teens, early 20s, their parents may have heard of the natural type of constitution that's sensitive, but anyone who is an adult would have grown up in a world where it was not known and it was judged, and people, for your own good, would have tried to
Mm.
push you out of it, considering it as a weakness or worrying about you, about the very things that might be most natural and most powerful to you, powerful as in effective and loving, but might have been judged as. So so yes, it wasn't easy, um, and I when I was thinking about this conversation with us today about authenticity, and sort of thinking about the flow of authenticity in my life, I realized how merciful life is, because there have been those tough experiences, but there have been little places of grace and assistance, such as I remembered, haven't thought about her in that context, that in all of the communist schooling times, a lot of it was about the party line, not being able to say certain things, not being able to think freely, and all of that. We had to learn Russian, we had to go to communist parades on communist days, like all of these things. And yet, at the time when I had those crises, I went to grammar school and had English classes there, and the English teacher didn't care what we would say as long as it was in English. And she would give us those topics to express our opinion about. As long as it was in English, she did not have that expectation that we had to speak obedient party line. So this was my first experience where someone was inviting my opinion, my authenticity. As long as it was in English, I could say what I thought about those topics.
Wow.
To watch TV or not to watch TV? What do you think about smoking? What do you think about, I don't know, freedom, or this or that and the other? And this was the first time, maybe this is why, I ended up living in UK, although I came here following my heart, not the language necessarily, but, who knows, like destiny. But there was that was that. And there were other little gifts from life, including I had an unexpected baby sister when I was 16. So just as I was giving up this little and wanted to kill myself, this little being who was so innocent and so beautiful came to my life, and who was so affectionate, that she just reopened my heart to life again. And things like that so much so that today, when I look back, when I look at those other little examples of how opportunity for authenticity was given me, or support for authenticity was given me.
I love that when you said
I was thinking that nothing is accidental. This is what it's looking like to me. I just wish I knew it as a younger self. But we get given the difficult experiences to try us, and opportunities to rise above them, to respond to that hero's journey. That's my sense today.
Wow. While you're sharing, it's like I'm having goosebumps, because, the word synchronicity just keeps on coming up, right? Synchronicity. So whenever we feel like we're stuck, somehow there's that, it is kind of like a silver lining, that kind of like, asking you to follow it through without knowing. That's like kind of out of your head space, where you're trying to like control, fix, and figure it out, right? But you just have to let loose and say, I have no idea why it's happening this way, but let me just follow it without a logical sense, almost, So what exactly lead you to this place with decluttering, the decluttering feel, where you feel like that actually is something that you are able to help some of the highly sensitives to ground themselves?
It's funny, because even recently I thought I had two different jobs, that it was the coaching and the decluttering side, and actually increasingly I see that my review and realignment conversations are, for the coaching conversations, are also a form of decluttering. Decluttering all of that is not you, all of that is no longer useful, all of that is too much and it's blocking you rather than supporting you. But that is also a surprise, because when I was doing those life purpose assignments, like when a lot of people kind of look to identify their life purpose, and I've been through those various workshops and whatever, and some of which suggested, look at what you were into in childhood. And at first I thought, oh no, I am doomed, because in my childhood there was no joy and no peace, and there was just. But then I realized that the one source of, in fact, there were two sources of some kind of encouragement or nourishment in my life. One was books, and
Mm.
the better options described in books, even in magical ways. But the other one was I couldn't control anything, and there was a lot of chaos. But the one thing I would do again and again and again, I would tidy, reorganize, and beautify my room. And I would, I would go to the family room or kitchen, and there would be tension and sort of stress there. And I would come home to my room and would turn on the light and forgot I had just changed things, and that would be that sense of something new and better and beautiful. That and the decluttering work, I did not think that because this was nothing I trained in, not formally, but friends started asking me to help them and asking me again and insisting to pay me. And this is how it happened, because
Oh,
so
wow.
this was just a kind of emergent path rather than educated path. And then of course I caught up with all the
Marie
Marie Kondos
Kondo.
of this world and all of
Yes.
these, exactly, so that I knew and so that I knew how my way compares to theirs, and also that I could reference various options for people. But yeah, that's how it started.
I imagine like
And
how healing that it has brought you, right? Like, because when you were back in Poland, there was a little bit not, you didn't feel like you're fitting into that atmosphere, right? Everything is not really within your personal control. But then again, you are allowing yourself to like, I get to create my spaciousness, create my beauty within what's already here.
very much so, because that was one of the realities, that resources were scarce, and the spaces were relatively small and cramped.
Yeah.
So it took some, that was my training. I really feel that was my training, that in order to create some kind of sense of spaciousness and beauty, you had to be really clever, and you had to
Creativity.
do things up and repurpose them. It's a joke, because now it's a big virtue but this was necessity for us, and now people are calling others to do it, and it's like, wow, this is in my blood. I know how to reuse, repurpose, repair. This is normal, except that in those days we didn't see it as glorious. Now it has very kind of now it's appreciated, but there's joy in it. In fact, I was sort of thinking, I have to hand an example of this where of it's still in me. For joy, I love multimedia art journaling, and part of this is what I do in my free time. When I play, I make so these are called embellishment clusters for so when you make if you wanted to make a cover for a journal or beautify a page inside of it, then you can make little things like that. But the reason why I want to show you is because these are made from
That is
nothing,
so
from rubbish.
cute.
Like
Wow.
a piece of envelope, a wrapper from a chocolate, an old page, like just nothing. But you can creativity can be alive in any circumstance, even in deprived circumstance, even from nothing. And this I'm in a 100-day art project at the moment, and the theme I chose for this year was from ugly fragments into unified uniqueness. And because if this was the language that came to name the thing that happens anyway by itself, because that's what my upbringing effectively trained me in.
You know what? This is so inspiring because I feel like it really frees that little child, because little child cannot really see like, oh, because we're scarce, we're in a scarcity moment, so there's no creativity, there's no play, there's no fun, right? But they just know. Kids, they just know how to make something out of nothing, right? And then you are allowing this to just kind of like allow that inventive energy to come. It's fabulous. I think it's fabulous. Yeah.
At long last, because I'll tell you, as a child, I was a little grown up. I was the kind of
Yeah.
most grown up in my family in some ways, kind of serious, responsible. minding others' needs. So this is revolutionary. I worked hard to liberate my play. It was by which I mean it was a deliberate practice, because it was not, playfulness was not, creativity yes, but playfulness was not easy in my childhood.
But I can see or feel almost like, you actually allow this to be a healing process for the inner child to just kind of come out and connect, right? Yeah. Tell me more. Okay, tell everybody more about how you connect with your hedgehog spirit. Because, oh my God, guys, you have to check out her website. I just fell in love with her website. Like, you design every little hedgehogs especially for your blogs. I saw like little ones that you drew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, share with us more.
It's sort of accidental in that one of the tools, modalities that are really close to my heart, and I trained a lot in, and is nonviolent communication. And its founder, Dr. Rosenberg, had the really genius idea to think of animal representatives or ambassadors of certain ways of being in life, and he chose giraffe and jackal to represent them. And so people have a lot of fun with giraffe and jackal puppets and giraffe and jackal cartoons and kind of symbology metaphors. And at first it looked like I would be a nonviolent communication trainer, but somehow the authenticity in me could not just align with implementing someone else's modality. It just wasn't. I tried because I was so in love with it, but it was not quite aligned, not sufficiently aligned. So when I was looking at this emergent thing that I was just following because it was happening, it was calling to me to serve people who are naturally highly sensitive. I thought Dr. Rosenberg was so effective and also lovable by using those animal creatures. I wonder if I could have an ambassador for my sensitives. And he chose, there were kind of reasons, there were qualities of the giraffe, for example, high perspective, or it has the biggest heart of all land animals, that I thought, so who would be, so this was a bit of a logistic question puzzle that I solved. Who would be a good ambassador of sensitivity? And I thought of hedgehog because, how easily overwhelmable it can be. And represents the feeling that I get when I'm overwhelmed, or when the world is too much, or too much stimulation, or when the pace is wrong and it's coming at me too fast, or whatever. I feel like that hedgehog looks. And then, of course, when I investigated into the archetype of the hedgehog, I discovered that, because hedgehogs look tiny, they look insecure, they hide, but they are also so powerful that they, when bitten by a snake, they can transmute the venom and be fine. And I thought, now that is alchemy, and that is a powerful way that they look that they are weaker, but actually they are more powerful than other creatures.
Oh my gosh!
And so I like that as well, but it's a sort of alchemical power. It's not the obvious in your face power. So I also love that aspect, because that really represents the organism that may have sensitive constitution, that can look vulnerable, but actually there is a corresponding heightened power that comes with it. And that's and I call my work gentle power because of that juxtaposition, that there is a gentleness constitutionally, but there is power alchemically. That's how I see it.
I just love how you chose hedgehog as a representation, because it does feel really sensitive. It's really prickly. It's very you want to put yourself in the cupboard, right? It represents, for example, when I'm overwhelmed, I feel like that as well. So it perfectly, it perfectly describes the feeling of being overwhelmed, and try to do something, but still feeling really vulnerable. But when you're saying, it has the alchemical power to to transmute the poison into something higher, right? And that's like really powerful. Yeah.
You know, this is might be an opportunity to smuggle a piece of
Which one?
insight that
Yes.
that because I so wish I understood this early in life, you know, that looking vulnerable or feeling vulnerable is not the same as being weak or powerless. And
Yes.
in fact, there is that nuance that the feeling of vulnerability is actually natural and healthy and useful. It is not a reflection on the level of power, of sovereignty, of choice, of options that we have. But often people confuse that. And so today I'm looking, you know, I dressed up because I'm having a wonderful conversation on camera. I'm with a good ally, so my energy is up. And I get the especially with my emotional authority that I get my down waves, and this is where I don't talk to people. I need, like the hedgehog, to recoup and reorient and recharge, and that's normal. And so I've done so much work to fix myself out of that, thinking that there's always, you know, trying to make myself stronger. And it's, in some ways I could have been, you know, playing with more art at that time rather than fixing that which wasn't broken to start with. So
okay, so then share with us like what that natural alignment feels like then for people who are sensitive, like I might be
what it
overwhelmed.
feels like, you know what, actually what I want to speak about it, that everybody will, even people who imagine that their lives are in trouble and who imagine that the sensitivity is a liability somehow, even they, if they had an opportunity to inquire and to remember, they would know what that feeling is like. Because, and this is a new way I've come across, Philip Shepherd, who wrote a book, Radical Wholeness, describes a sense of inherent wholeness. But you know, when you think about alignment, what do we align with? I believe that if we're aligned with ourselves and with life, we are aligned not with a set of perfect circumstances, because in a lot of self-improvement, personal growth, new agey worlds, or even in techie worlds, the notion is that good means more or better of circumstances. I don't necessarily feel like that, because sometimes difficult circumstances are actually how we become who we are. They are not, adversity is part of what happens in life. It's not bad news. So what do we align with then? It's not with perfection or right circumstances, but I guess with our constitution and with our passion and with our purpose. And or another way to say it, with our inherent wholeness, this sense that nothing is accidental, that we are well designed, that there is some deeper intelligence and beauty in life, inherent wholeness. And I think he's a doctor, Philip Shepherd, refers to inherent wholeness as a sense, not a notion, not a belief or a mindset, but a sense, in the same way that we have a sense of sight, smell, and balance, and we have so many more senses than we know about. So if it's true that it's a sense, then we know a sense of balance. We know what that feels like. Even if we had loss of balance because we had earache, we still know. Someone non-verbally in our body know. And the same, I believe, with alignment or with inherent wholeness. We know those moments when we stopped and smelled the roses and felt grateful to be alive, or when a child like my baby sister could cry just now, who would, you know, come and hug you, and the innocence and the warmth and the faith that child would have in you. Yes. Or, you know, if you like look in the eyes of the elderly, if you're doing something that you know brings you joy, or you're just hitting that head, the pillow with your head when you're really, really tired, and that moment of the need for rest and the provision of rest are meeting each other, that is alignment. It's just that our head is so filled with shoulds, either scary shoulds or worthy shoulds, that we miss using that sense because we're following the notion, the kind of crazy making notions of.
You know what? This is so good, because especially when you're talking about the inherent wholeness, right? It just kind of reminds me of that sense of self-worth. And then one of your blog posts, by the way, I love your blog posts. Everyone is amazing. One of it, the most recent one, you talk about Valentine's letter, your Valentine's letter about self-worth. Can you share with everyone here what was the story that you that actually provoke you to talk about self-worth in that specific blog?
Yeah, it was uncomfortable. It was one of those where adversity becomes a gift in the end, because I was talking to a new colleague. I reached out to her to become buddies, to integrate a particular course, business course that we're on. And I noticed such a beautiful woman, amazing presence, wise, kind, patient, amazing listener. And I was experiencing wonderful breakthroughs for me in her presence. But I was left with this feeling of somehow less worthy than her, because I felt that somehow she gave me more than I gave her. And after the call, I felt sort of ashamed and guilty and not knowing what to do. But I was also intrigued by this feeling because the conversations were good; they were useful both ways. And so I thought, why would I feel that I gave less, even though I brought my heart and my intelligence and my listening also to the table, right? And so I engaged another ally of mine, because this is how my life works. I am only as good as my allies, or my interactions with my allies. And so I brought this puzzle to her. And somehow there was something she said that I had this revelation that the reason why, because it didn't make sense, but I felt it. So the reason why I felt somehow that I was less worthy, my contribution less worthy than hers, was because I was not like her. My way is different. And I somewhere assumed, and I could sort of see when it happened in my childhood, I assumed that if I was not doing as much and exactly what the other person was doing or more, I was therefore not doing enough. And because she had a particular flavor of intelligence and patience, and I'm a little bit more passionate, let's put it this way, and more chaotic than her, then I was sort of, by looking at the difference, by looking at what she had, what was her alignment, and I couldn't quite match it, then I felt that I was not giving enough. And I've already known largely so that particular ally as well, who specializes in what she calls natural advantage, that that our contribution, our gifts and strengths are actually most invisible to ourselves. So this is where it was. I was seeing her thing, I didn't have it, I didn't see my own as well. So that hence the difference in self-worth. And so that's kind of one thing that the moment I understood this, the next call was all fine, and I was able to laugh about it and also to tell her the story, and it was beautiful.
Wow.
It just shifted. But the fun thing about it is that each year I choose 3 qualities of being as my guides and as my North Star for the year. And one of the qualities I chose for this year, and I only remembered this after the whole incident, is divine self-worth.
Wow.
I am doing the training, or I don't know, an upgrade in what Sufism calls divine self-worth. And so that was one of the lessons or one of the adventures on my journey towards embracing self-worth more. Because when you think about a hedgehog, human hedgehogs, growing up or living in the world as it is, we can be confronted with being made to feel less than or weaker than, less powerful than others through the difference, because this world is configured for, more for extroverted people. Our systems are configured more for people who are louder, faster. And so fastest fingers first, I call it. There was a game show in UK that was, the winners would be the ones who had fastest fingers. And this is like, this was jokingly in the game, but that's how a lot of our systems are configured that way. And we experience statistically quite a lot of low self-esteem, and this is why authenticity or alignment is the remedy for this, because we will never succeed. Nobody can succeed in other people's lives. So if we want to access our own power, our own effectiveness, our own sovereignty, our own beauty, it can only happen through authenticity, which is your beautiful work comes into it. Alignment.
Your beautiful work comes into it. But also, I feel like you just brought up a lot of things. One is, I feel like the way we grew up, or a lot of people too, I believe, were highly sensitives. As we grow up, right? Sometimes our caretakers are telling us like, yeah, I've done all these things for you, and then this, and this, right? So in a way, as kids, we probably kind of like took it in like, oh, wow, I feel like I have to pay them back in a way, in a form that makes this, contribution more balanced, rather than like I'm being a taker from my caretaker, from my parents, for example, right? But then how can I repay them so I don't feel like I owe so much for what they have done for me, right? So there's a psyche, like, for example, that's my story. In my psyche, like, I have to continuously just like, try to do more in the family, in different facets of my life, in order to feel that worthiness, right? But then again, that's like, that's actually going against the current. That's going against our natural rhythm. And like what we're talking about, then when we're against our natural rhythm, we feel like a failure. We feel like a failure, and we try to fix ourselves again. And it's just like a crazy vicious cycle, never ends. And wind up feeling like not feeling authentic at all. And that's a dilemma, right?
I'll be forever grateful to Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication, for the distinction that he made, liberating distinction for me, between culture and nature, or nature. Sometimes when people talk about nature and nurture, that there is also a kind of, or it's not, the word natural is also sometimes, I feel, confused in the world of how people think about it, because it sometimes becomes an excuse for things. But culture is the assumptions about life that we get from society and from our systems and from our traditions and stuff like that. And culture is hopefully always improving as well. But nonetheless, there are a lot of harmful notions that persist in culture as traditions to uphold. And this, the example you gave of the sort of sense of being beholden to the family in a way that holds you back and therefore holds your contribution to the world back. Well, I understand, because I am very eclectic and I love listening to ways people, wherever they are in the world, and I have I don't know whether it's because I'm introverted or for some other magical reason, or I don't know, past life reason, I have deep appreciation for Asian cultures. And so I understand that in Asian cultures, this is a particularly strong expectation.
Quite strong, yes.
Somehow, I understand from what I observed that this is stronger than in the West. It's almost like maybe that's how it is, that cultures have got a sense of, they get hold of some notion and run with it, whether or not it's in balance with other things. So in Asia, there may be more of a bias or imbalance towards faithfulness and dutifulness to the family.
Right.
In the West, there is too much imbalance perhaps towards individual and selfishness. and all of that.
Mm,
So an rugged individual. That so this is where I feel that part of our growing in wisdom and
yeah.
in our usefulness to the world is
Mm,
to wean ourselves some from the imbalanced parts of our conditioning and our culturation, and keep looking for the wisdom and the guidance and the best way we can. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess we all try to do the best with the circumstances and the information and the guidance we get, and hopefully it changes for the better throughout life. But that distinction, because it has stronghold, doesn't it? It's like it comes, those expectations from the culture, they come with peer pressure, they come with guilt and
right.
shame. Sometimes they
Yes.
come with punishment. Sometimes there are things
Mm,
that are sealed by law. I don't know how to
mm,
think of an
mm,
example of things that are, like stealing, for example. It's a kind of, against the rules, some religious codes, and against some laws, and yet the laws, culturally speaking, favor the powerful, and at the cost of some other people. So this is where the culture and the law, and sometimes
mm.
religious law, condemns something that other people have to do. I don't know to what extent you have to steal, but that I'm sure there are people who cannot have enough without stealing in the world. This is the reality of how the world is configured. If you take this as Bible,
Mm.
then you are aligning with something that is not quite true, not quite balanced. If you're hungry and you have no other resources, I say steal.
Mm, mm.
Of course, the assumption whether there are no other resources, or we only think so, that's an important one to pay attention to, right? But there is a kind of extreme example. But there's that's part of it, of being able to give yourself permission to do the unpopular thing.
This is such liberation to give ourselves permission to do the unpopular things. But let's say, okay, for highly sensitive solopreneurs or any clients that you're serving, have you encountered any cases where they feel it's such a struggle for them to kind of like, going against the norm, right? The which means that they have to speak up for themselves, to talk about unpopular opinions, um, that can kind of threaten them, feeling like they're going to be outcasted from a tribe or from their culture group, right? Like you said.
You know, possibly an example, because I am particularly useful to generators in human design,
Mm,
generators, reflectors. So, a lot of whom are deeply caring, and that's kind of the type of person, highly sensitive constitution, comes with high perception and high levels of care and compassion and empathy. And
mm,
so these people are often particularly burdened by feeling for others and being too nice, and exhausting themselves by being nice and looking nice, and looking busy is another way of
mm,
and so not all. And so I actually, talking to a client once, I had the sudden realization that there are three modes of, like three states of being that we can find ourselves in. That the drama of being nice, because it is a drama, because there's like, we are really afraid or feel really ashamed if we're not
mm.
nice, if we have to do something, say no, or disappoint someone.
Yeah.
That is a scary thing to do in the normal culturation. Often people don't like it when you say no, right? Or
Mm, mm,
and
mm.
then, so it's a drama of you kind of aligning with this, but paying the price yourself, or risking breaking away, but also it's scary. And then there's the drama of getting treated nice, and it's almost like the two go together, because then first we overgive, and then we
Right.
sulk that we are not, natural pendulum swings. It's like, what about me? And there is this sort of more of a sense of entitlement, and I see that in sensitives as well. You
Yeah.
see sometimes when people first discover sensitivity, if you go to highly sensitive person forums, oh my God, is there a lot of moaning going on? Because, and the kind of entitlement to listen to the moaning because of how bad the suffering is. And of course, it's a state, and people sort of, that's kind of also natural at first to kind of, when you first get understood for how it is that nobody appreciates, then you kind of let rip because you want to kind of get it off your chest. So I understand this, but nonetheless, if not careful, life can become about the kind of compensating for the overwhelming world, and then you are like the princess and the pea that can never get enough mattresses, and if life is only about that, is also kind of, I feel, tough in the end. So that's why I kind of notice that either way in the drama of trying to be nice or trying to get treated nice, or we are in the attendance to our passion and purpose, which is this third mode.
And that's the ultimate solution. Can you say that?
Well, that is the happiest state of being, I would say. And human nature means that we find ourselves in the dance between these three.
Yes.
I do not wish to offer another worthy should that people will be stressed about.
No.
It's kind of like, but for sure, for me, this sense of well-being, of thriving, of feeling that your life has a place and meaning is a lot about this. The more we can be focused on not, am I doing the right thing, following the rules, being acceptable, and not in the, oh my God, am I getting respected enough? All those people who get offended because they don't get respected. That can be also a dead end somewhat, or a kind of drama that you get caught in, and it's sticky, and it takes your time and attention and resources, but it's nothing in terms of satisfaction or this sense of fullness, wholeness compared to this.
This is so powerful, though. This is really powerful because I can relate to that. I've been through all three.
Well, we all have.
And because we're human, we're human in this human body, and we feel so much, right? And then so pendulum swim, like, going one side, over giving, and going the other side, receiving, asking a lot back, right? And then the human drama, right? It's all involving here. But when you're talking about the purpose and passion, it's like it's neutral. It's neutral, though. The relationship we build with a sense of purpose and passion, it's not directly humanly related, right? So we don't take things personally, directly speaking.
Yes. Or there's a feeling I have about this here, just trying to listen to what it is, that why it is neutral, that plants and animals don't get depressed, even if they are in tough circumstances. Like there's the expression of that the birds will sing until they, the frost kills them, and that's how they stop. They don't. So there's some way in which a lot of, and Buddhism talks about it as well, that a lot of our suffering is about what we do, about our take on things, about our perspective, about our narrative, about what our thought process says about things. And if we drop more deeply into the body, into our senses, into that, for example, following the sense of navigating by the sense of inherent wholeness, rather than by the notions of what's broken and how we need to compensate or hide or earn our worth, all of these things that the invalidations we receive in the world make us assume. These are two different trajectories. And so it's true that the body has no judgments about ourselves or others or life. It's the judgments and dramas are good in books and films, aren't they? I mean, that's because they grip us, they make us forget everything else, and so it's fun. But it's not the way we would want to live. And
also because our mind is so so used to constant stimulation of the drama. We feel that's the way most of us we have experienced life, right? There's a lot of things going on, chaos, mess, whatever. And then all of a sudden, if you want to empty this place, it actually gets a little bit like in an anxious state, right? Sometimes, because I'm so used to this overstimulation of things that keeps me occupied, right?
There is neuroscience talks about the default mode network, which if you have invalidations, judgments that you took in and are living in you, that's when it gets quiet. You get to be in contact with that, and it can be terrifying. So when I was thinking about the high self-esteem or divine self-esteem, in the 99 divine names in Sufism, one of them, which are qualities of being to aspire to or to connect to, there is also a low self-esteem. They wish for, or they recognize the value of low self-esteem as well. And this is the nuance. And by the way, this one of the reasons why I love highly sensitive people is because they are capable of nuance, unlike culture and social media and a lot of what gets most visibility in the world is quite black and white. Goodies and baddies everywhere. Goodies and baddies everywhere, in our political systems, in our judicial systems, in our storytelling, in our morality. It's very crude, but highly sensitive organisms who are capable of deeper perception and feeling more deeply and sensing more deeply into what's true are capable of nuance. And the nuance, that's part of it, right? That even binge watching on the Netflix because you do not want for it to stop, there is also a wisdom in that over time, because it protects you from the Sarah Payton, who wrote, I'm trying to think what, I'm forgetting the title of her book, but she offers a lot of wisdom and guidance for trauma healing. Talks about, she used the word savage default mode network, that those voices that survived trauma but survived it by creating a particular conclusion about how bad we are or life is, their voices can be savage. And if we were to face them without support and container and guidance, we could be annihilated inside of us. So better to watch Netflix, in a way.
Yeah.
In the meantime, not only, of course, I'm not, but there is nothing is accidental, none of those choices. And I guess that's why when I do my review and realignment conversations, we gently and compassionately look at the reality of what happens, because there are reasons, good reasons for everything. And of course, when we understand the reasons better, then better options become available, because it's possible to watch Netflix a little bit less and to use time talking to an ally who will help you heal some of those voices, so you don't have to be distracting yourself quite as much, all of that. But that's kind of why I was where I'm visiting right now. I was reporting to a person I was visiting. Gosh, I love my work so much because I get energy after client session, and the privilege of that. I'm just so lucky. But it's that, because those conversations are about uncovering the truth of the inherent wholeness, and how nothing is accidental, and how there are good reasons for everything, and how you can choose. And even Dr. Rosenberg used to a joke that life is about becoming progressively less stupid. And it's being an
that's
ally
so true,
for
though.
someone.
That's so true.
Yeah, it's a fun way to spend time.
Oh my God.
Helping myself and other people to become progressively less stupid, in our expression. The truth is inherent wholeness, but all of those behaviors and notions we acquired are kind of having quite a way with us at times, right?
You really cover a lot, Hedgehog lady. I just have to say, how grateful I am to have you to even share about the our inner saboteur, the chat inside of ourselves, the toxic conversation we have with ourselves that affect the way we look at ourselves, that causes feeling that low sense of self-worth, right? And evidently it's going to lead to I'm going to abandon myself. So why bother to even talk about authenticity, right? So I think the final question I would love to kind of explore with you is, okay, fine. Now we know authenticity is important, right? To our wholeness, the well-being itself, mentally, emotionally, and all other aspects. Then for sensitive being, what's the best way from your viewpoint, right? From your viewpoint to really get in touch with their truth, right? And then stand fearlessly almost, because they have to go through that dark tunnel of, oh my God, I'm afraid, like what we just talked about, the human side of the pendulum, right? What's the one way, and a simple way for them to just kind of like navigate, so they have the courage to say, I can do authenticity even though I'm sensitive.
So I would say, well, if you wanted only one, then I would have to say to consider, because I don't want don't want people to take my word for it, but to
Sure.
consider this and to try it out.
Yeah.
That not only our the truth of who we are and what's possible is neutral and inherently whole and beautiful, but we also have that we are well designed, that we have a, even though we live in the age of information overload and all so many toxic notions or peer pressure types that are not good for us, even though that seems never ending and like outnumbering us, nonetheless we are navigating all of it in an organism that is well designed, and that we have a sense of inherent wholeness of what is or isn't aligned with our inherent wholeness. And because so if you assume that you have a sense for it, then it's only one thing to check in with when you are making your choices, rather than all of those rules and regulations and shoulds and heard suggesting stuff. So what if you had something in you, inherent inbuilt compass, one of those no, not even compass, one of those I envisage it like this when I ran my Find Your Bearings for the Year course in January. I use this metaphor, but I'm forgetting what the instrument is called. On airplanes and ships, there are instruments that are showing not only the north and directions, but also whether there is a left and right balance, whether up and down. So it's like a 3D instrument that can sense of what's what. And so it's kind of like that. There is something like that in us that we can navigate by, and it is a sense, not a concept. So it's something that we feel into, we hear it, it's words do not come into it. So navigate by that. But the second thing I would say is that we are an organism. So this is structurally, you have that sense for it. But that's the paradox, that even the hermits and the introverts and the sensitives of us, of which I am one, I have a hermit too in my human design, even those cannot function fully without allies or without other people's and plants and animals' energy activating certain aspects of our capacity. So there are things that we cannot do without other beings enhancing them or supporting them. And so that is also very, very important. That's why I offer my work. And we need to and this is also new in the world of my childhood. It was not possible to find the type of companionship that I would wish for, because it would be more trouble than it was worth.
Yeah.
Now there are ways of being, types of workshops, types of guides, types of ways of working, ways of talking, Zoom. We can talk across the world without the overstimulation of traveling. So much is now possible that is more sensitive friendly. And so that is the encouragement to find allies that are for you, that get you, that resonate, and that get your power, not only your that get your sensitive power, not only the type of supporters who treat you as broken or or ill or something, because that comes at a cost. You have to act like a victim or a broken one to participate in that system of support. But there are systems of support that will both help as well as treat you as a sovereign being that you are. And there are partners and companions and on FocusMate and I don't know, George Cow communities of this world who are the good source of people like that. And that is also so important.
I love this because you beautifully wrapped. I feel like it's the inside out. Inside, you feel into that sense of intuitive guidance almost, because we are all intuitive. And for sensitive beings, most of us, we are really intuitive. And then allowing our sensitivity plus our intuition, right, to guide us through how to flow effortlessly, rather than like, let me just try to make this happen. But how do we do it in a way so we can be authentic, but without efforting, right? Without efforting. And then another one you said it so beautifully is having companions or supporters who really see the truth of that gentle power that you mentioned, right? And these two, the inside and then outside, right? Beautiful combination, Dorota. So how can people find you? Your important sacred work needs to be spread out in the world. I mean, there's so many of us, we're trying to navigate in this today's world. It's just not easy, not easy.
Thank you for your beautiful support for my conversation in the world, and for sensitives in the world, for authenticity, the power of the authenticity, the empowerment of the sensitives. It's so beautiful to be a colleague with you in this. And gentle power, this was when this phrase came to me one day, and I just knew that these were my marching orders. So gentlepower.co.uk, because that's where I am.
Okay.
And beautiful. These days, I just love offering those conversations for compassionate review and realignment. Either when people have overwhelm and frazzlement everywhere, and they just need some way to just drop everything down, down gear, and or if they have a recurring overwhelm with one aspect of work life and relating that just is not going away, and it's a burden. So in either those cases, in one conversation, I can make a big difference to come back to that neutrality, to that sense of inherent, unique, individual power, and your unique way that you can do things in, and then without efforting, and then everything is different.
So beautiful, people. You hear what Dorota shared. She has that gentle power to hold beautiful space for you if you feel frazzled, fragmented, and then learn to harness that sensitive power, gentle power within you. So you can let also the hedgehog spirit inspire you when you are feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling too much. But remember the truth of your own authenticity. Yeah. Yes.
you know, the hedgehog is a nocturnal being. It only does this when we yank it out of the bushes in the daylight. When
Oh,
it's
wow.
in its vibe, in its right correct time and correct place, it
Mm,
plays like the rest of the animal kingdom.
wow.
Yeah, I
So
learned.
good to know.
Thank you for being partner in that work in the world.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. All right, beautiful people. Then we will see you soon. Check out her website. It's amazing. You're going to be so inspired. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.